Jessica Morris. Welcome to Chit Chat Auditorium here on Magic Mountain this morning, Sunday morning chapel service here at Caron. I am filling in for Reverend Jack so he can have a little well-deserved time off this morning. I'd like to start with a little story that I've heard Reverend Jack tell many, many times as he's introducing communion or getting us ready to take communion at Caron Chapel. He talks about Father Bill, who unfortunately I never had the opportunity to meet. And the more that I hear about him, the more I'm disappointed I didn't get to meet him. But I love hearing these stories about him because he sounds like he was quite a character. And those of you watching on YouTube or alumni probably remember this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Basically, what Father Bill said when he was getting ready to talk to a patient about communion or forgiveness was what we talk about in the service every Sunday morning, that the medical practitioners here teach us that choice is taken away from the addict in their behavior. Choice is taken away from the addict. This is an illness, and these are symptoms of the illness when they behave in these ways. So theologically speaking, this changes our understanding of what is going on when the addict is acting out on those behaviors. It's hard to call it sin if someone doesn't have a choice. And so what Father Bill would say is it's hard to say I forgive you for it or absolve you for it when you didn't have a choice. So our job, what he would then follow it up and say, our job here at Caron Treatment Centers is to get you well enough to sin. And I love that. I absolutely love that, because once you're here and you start to learn about the illness and you start to learn about the choices that are put in front of you, now you have a choice. When some sort of thing is put in front of you, a decision or an action to take, you can make a decision now. You can choose. Am I going to continue acting this way, or am I going to listen to what those people at Caron Treatment Centers told me and move forward in this direction that they said was a healthier direction? And how do we do that? This is all about healing your soul. There's physical healing and there's psychological healing that goes with this process. But the 12 steps that were laid out before us by those who've gone before us are very simply a spiritual solution. And that may be really, really difficult for some people to swallow, and I understand. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Bill W., who most of you have heard about, he had a hard time with God. And so when someone came to him and sat across from him in the kitchen and said, "I found God, it's going to work for you, I stopped drinking," he was a little skeptical. So if you're a little skeptical, that's okay, because our founder was, one of our co-founders was. And here's the thing about this spiritual solution of the 12 steps. It's very simply laid out there. I mean, the directions are very clear. And it's really hard to do. I've done them many times, and I can tell you it probably gets harder over time, because you dig down into places you didn't even know you needed to heal. And you think, oh, I'll do those 12 steps and then I'll be on my way. It's a spiritual solution for life. Now, one of the readings that we heard this morning was about waking up to that spiritual solution. And I don't know about you all, but especially on a morning like this, nobody wants to get out of bed. I wanted to stay in bed this morning. I love coming here and doing this work. And I really just wanted to stay in bed this morning because I didn't feel like going out in the rain. I didn't feel like getting up. It's Sunday morning. But I got up. No one had to wrestle me out of bed today. But nobody likes to be wrestled out of bed when you're so comfortable and that pillow feels so soft under your head. But that's what has to happen in order for us to heal. We need to wake up and stop walking through life asleep. Because we're not feeling anything. We've numbed ourselves to everything. And that's what it's like to walk through life asleep. You all know that. So it's time to wake up. And it's time to bump up against that wall of spirituality in order to heal. Some of us have been hurt, abused, abandoned by religion or religious people. So we want to go, that's not for me. Some of us think the only way to get a spiritual experience is by taking a certain drug. Anybody here? Yeah. You felt it when you took that drug, right? And how am I going to get there now when they're telling me I can't take that drug anymore? Some of us just refuse to believe. We cannot or will not believe because of science or logic, or whatever it is that we're putting in between us and that higher power. And I could go on and on and on here about all the excuses and reasons we give ourselves about why we can't have a spiritual experience or why we don't need a higher power. But I'm not going to, because I've already talked about the greatest deterrent to living in the spiritual solution. And that deterrent is that it's really hard to do. Nobody wants to do this work. Nobody wants to do it. Right in the very first paragraph of this AA 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book, this is what it says. Who cares to admit complete defeat? Practically no one, of course. Every natural instinct cries out against the idea of personal powerlessness. Every natural instinct you have is telling you not to admit this. It's hard to do. It is truly awful to admit that glass in hand, we have warped our minds. We have warped our minds, a strong language, into such an obsession for destructive drinking or using that only an act of providence with a capital P, only an act of providence can remove it from us. So if you think this is hard and you don't feel like doing it, guess what? You're not alone. That's the first paragraph in the direction on how to work the 12 steps. They're setting you up to understand how hard this is. And I'm not telling you how hard it is to make you feel bad. I'm standing here today before you to tell you that all that hard work is worth it. Because that healing process is not going to happen until you admit it. Think about it this way. If you broke your arm, if you fell and broke your arm and it's like dangling, hanging off, like you really broke it, you know, like when you see the football player and the bones sticking out, like really bad broke it, right? You're gonna go to the hospital, I'm guessing. I mean, unless you've got some really good drugs I don't know about, you're going to the hospital and you're gonna ask the doctor to help you because you don't know how to fix this. You're admitting you don't know how to fix this and you need help. This is the same thing. You may have tried to fix it, but whatever you've tried before has gotten you sitting in the seats. And so you need help, you need to admit it. And that's the first step. And it's painful. It's painful to say it out loud. So you get the doctor to set the cast or fix your arm for the cast or whatever the heck the doctor does. You do the same thing here. You show up to the sessions that they put on your schedule, and you listen, and you admit you need help, and you listen. That's the really, really hard part too. Because I don't know about you all, but I want everyone to know my sad story. I want to tell everybody my story, everybody I come in contact with. But what I was taught in early recovery is stop talking. Listen to how the people who've gone before you have overcome their sad stories. Because for some reason they have a light in their eyes for some reason they have a peacefulness that you can't really explain. And I don't know about you, but I want to know how to get that. I'm tired of feeling uncomfortable and icky inside all the time, unless I'm using. And towards the end, for me, it didn't help how much I drank. I couldn't get rid of the uncomfortableness anymore. No matter how much I drank, no matter how much I took in. And so I was willing and desperate enough to listen to what they had to say, because I wanted to know how they had peace in their hearts and in their eyes. Now they're probably going to tell you that you might want to find a higher power. And considering that the God of your childhood, or the God of your latest boyfriend or girlfriend, or the non-God of your philosophy professor has let you down, that might be a really, really hard thing to do. But the beauty of it is, here's the beauty of it. It doesn't matter what I think about higher power. And it doesn't matter what your parents think about higher power. It doesn't matter what the person sitting next to you right here thinks about higher power. What matters is what you think about higher power and how you get there. And how do you get there? You listen to how other people got there. And I guarantee you that no two people who try to help you are going to tell you the exact same thing. There's going to be similarities along the way on how they got there, but they're probably not going to tell you the same thing. And that's the best part. That's the best part of this healing process. If you think you're going to be struck by lightning because of that, I don't know if there's anybody out there who grew up like I did, but where I went to church, my dad was the minister, and he stood up there and he pounded his fist and he pretty much said, if you don't come to God this way, you're going to burn in hell. That's a really scary message when you're a kid, especially when it's not just coming from the minister, but it's coming from your dad. So I grew up thinking, if I don't do it this way, I'm going to burn in hell. And when I came into recovery and they're telling me I have to find a higher power, I'm like waiting for people to get struck by lightning. Because this is blasphemous. But it's not. I'm unscathed. They're unscathed. And here's the beauty of it for me, and this doesn't have to be your experience, but for me, I was able to get back to the higher power that worked for me when I was really, really, really little, before I was scared. Some people I've met have found an absolutely new higher power that's worked for them. Some people use the rooms of people in recovery. Whatever the case may be for you, that's the beauty of it. It's for you. And it's going to be painful, and it's going to be scary. And you're going to have to listen a lot. But it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. These people know what they're talking about. And the last thing I'm going to share with you is from the story that we heard from the Gospel of Mark. Those of you on the YouTube audience, I'm sorry you missed that reading, but basically the story goes that there was a man who was paralyzed, and back in those days they didn't have wheelchairs. There was no way for him to get to the healer that everybody had heard about, healing people. And so 4 of his friends put him on a stretcher, and they carried him there. And there was this big, huge crowd of people. And they couldn't get through the crowd. They couldn't get around the crowd. They couldn't get their friend to this healer. But they heard that he'd healed people. And they believed, and they wanted to get there. And so what did they do? They climbed up on the top of the house where he was preaching, and they broke through the ceiling so that they could lower their friend down to the healer. This is what people in recovery are going to be willing to do for you. I'm not kidding. They're going to be willing to go out of their way to help you to get to that healing place. They're going to go out of their way to help you to get to your higher power. Why? Because somebody did it for them. And that's how this thing works. It keeps working for all of us because we keep working for each other and with each other. They will break through the roof for you. You have to ask for their help, and you have to accept their help. I'm guessing the guy on the stretcher wasn't going, you know, you guys are going the wrong direction. You need to take me over there. He was just grateful somebody was carrying him. And that's our job, especially in early recovery, to be grateful for the people who are willing to carry us where we need to go. Now, the other part of the story is there were some scholars there who were kind of nitpicking at what that healer was saying. They were, well, he can't say that. He's not allowed to. What is he doing? That's blasphemous. When you start to heal, there are going to be some naysayers. Most likely it's going to be the people you used to hang out with. They're going to look at you slanty-eyed and go, yeah, whatever. Go do your 12 steps. We'll see you back at the bar when you're ready. Because they're not doing it. They don't want to see it work for someone else. Or they're afraid they're going to lose you. Either way, they're not going to like it because it's going to be different. Nobody likes change, especially addicts. The other people who might find this to be a little uncomfortable are the people who actually probably encouraged you to come here. Your family and your loved ones. They want you to get well, and then you start to get well, and they go, well, wait a minute, you're not getting well right. I would like you to do it this way. And that's where you have to keep your focus on your own program, on your own stuff. Because that's what happens. When we start to change, other people might feel a little bit uncomfortable. Even though they're good changes, they're really good changes. But I'm sure you've already heard, people, places, and things. People, places, and things might bump up against your healing. And it's okay. That's part of life and relationship, and you have to be as compassionate with them as you want them to be with you. The last piece of this I would like to share is from Voices of Recovery, which is a daily reader, a 12-step daily reader that I love. And I actually have copies of this prayer down here for anybody who would like to have a copy of it before you leave today. This is a prayer to say, it was written by a 12-step member, and it's a prayer that you can say. In here it says therapist, but you can say it before you walk into a meeting. You can say it before you sit down with your sponsor or another person in recovery, or especially here before you walk into that counselor's office. Because what you need is a spiritual solution, and that comes from your higher power. It comes through people, but it comes from your higher power. So it's always good to ask for this help before you walk through that door. And here's the prayer. God, or higher power, I am powerless over my emotional and mental state. Please guide and direct this session. Give me the courage to speak my truth without censoring. Provide my therapist with the knowledge and insight that will best facilitate my recovery. Allow me to hear and accept these truths. Guide me to the actions I need to take and provide me the willingness to take them. Thank you. Never hurts to say thank you. And as you're walking through this, and as you are feeling pain, because you're gonna feel pain, I mean, think about that broken arm, the cast on it. It gets itchy, right? And when it gets itchy, what do? You find the end of a pencil or a ruler or something, and you try to get it down in there so you can scratch that itch. When you start to get uncomfortable in this healing process, here's how you scratch the itch. You pick up the phone and you call somebody in recovery and you ask for help. Or you get down on your knees and you pray and you ask your higher power for help. That's your ruler. That's how you scratch the itch. And I guarantee you, if you stay the course with this, I guarantee you do these things that everyone here is guiding you to do. The people who love you, eventually, they're going to look at you and they're going to say what those people in that Gospel of Mark story said at the end. We've never seen anything like